the deportation of Rasha Alawieh, a stark illustration of the Trump administration's escalating assault on immigration and academia. The shocking deportation of Dr. Rasha Alawieh, a Brown University medical professor, to Lebanon over the weekend serves as a chilling illustration of the Trump administration's increasingly aggressive and seemingly lawless immigration policies. This act, a blatant disregard for a judge's order, has sent shockwaves through the academic community and ignited a firestorm of controversy. Alawieh, a 34-year-old physician with a valid U.S. work visa, was forcibly removed from the country despite a Friday court order from U.S. District Court Judge Leo Sorokin mandating a hearing on Monday and requiring 48 hours' notice before any deportation. This order was openly flouted by U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, who put Alawieh on a flight to Paris, presumably a connecting flight to Lebanon. The CBP's actions raise serious questions about the rule of law and due process. A spokesperson offered a curt statement to Reuters, claiming that officers adhere to strict protocols to identify and stop threats, shifting the onus of proof onto the individual to demonstrate admissibility. This response, however, provides no justification for the blatant disregard for a judicial order. The Guardian's request for comment from CBP remained unanswered, adding to the growing sense of opacity and impunity surrounding this case. The incident is not an isolated event. It's part of a broader pattern of escalating immigration enforcement under the Trump administration's second term. The mass deportation of over 250 immigrants, allegedly members of Venezuelan and Salvadorian gangs, to El Salvador on Sunday, also in defiance of a judicial stay, further underscores this alarming trend. These actions, taken without regard for due process or the rulings of the courts, paint a picture of an administration operating outside the bounds of established legal frameworks. Alawieh's deportation is particularly significant due to its implications for the academic community. Brown University, deeply concerned by the incident, sent an email to its international students and faculty urging caution regarding international travel due to the potential changes in travel restrictions and travel bans. The university's response reflects a growing sense of unease and insecurity among international scholars and students, many of whom are now rightfully fearful of similar arbitrary actions. Dr. George Bayless, a colleague of Alawieh's at Brown's Division of Kidney Disease and Hypertension, expressed the widespread outrage within the university, stating that the staff are all outraged by this blatant disregard for justice and the impact on their colleague. Alawieh's case is inextricably linked to the Trump administration's broader campaign against universities, particularly those perceived as being critical of its policies. This campaign appears aimed at silencing dissent and intimidating those who dare to challenge the administration's agenda. The targeting of Columbia University following pro-Palestinian protests in 2024 exemplifies this disturbing trend. Mahmoud Khalil, a former Columbia graduate student with a green card and a leader of these protests, was detained by federal law enforcement for deportation. Furthermore, Ranjani Srinivasan, a graduate student from India with no connection to the protests, was also targeted by immigration authorities, prompting her to flee to Canada, an action described by U.S. officials as self-deportation. These actions are not confined to individual cases. The administration's consideration of new travel restrictions for citizens of dozens of countries further demonstrates its escalating anti-immigrant stance. A leaked draft list reveals plans for full or partial visa suspensions for citizens of countries grouped into 3 separate categories. This suggests a systematic and sweeping approach to restricting immigration, impacting not just individuals but entire nations. The cumulative effect of these actions, the deportation of a respected medical professor in defiance of a court order, the mass deportation of immigrants, the targeting of university students and faculty for political reasons, and the proposed widespread travel restrictions, paints a deeply troubling picture. It suggests an administration increasingly willing to circumvent the rule of law, disregard judicial authority, and silence dissent through aggressive immigration enforcement. The case of Rasha Alawieh is not just an individual tragedy. It's a stark warning about the erosion of fundamental rights and the potential chilling effect on academic freedom and open discourse within the United States. The international community must take note of this blatant disregard for human rights and the potential for wider implications for academic collaboration and global scientific progress. The lack of transparency and accountability surrounding Alawieh's deportation demands a thorough investigation and a commitment from the government to uphold the rule of law and ensure that such injustices are never repeated. This incident underscores the urgent need for reform and a renewed commitment to the principles of due process, fairness, and respect for human rights. The chilling effect on academic freedom and the fear instilled in international scholars and students pose a severe threat to the vibrancy and innovation that characterize American higher education. The international community has a vested interest in ensuring that the United States remains a welcoming and inclusive environment for scholars and students from all backgrounds, and the actions taken against Dr. Alawieh represent a significant setback in this regard. The silence from CBP, the disregard for court orders, and the broader pattern of aggressive immigration enforcement all point to a worrying trend that threatens the foundations of American democracy and its standing on the world stage. The implications for the future of immigration policy and academic freedom in the United States are profoundly serious and demand immediate and decisive action.